welcome to Euromoney's live stream and to our special digital Saudi series. Before we get started, I need to read you a short disclaimer. This stream is for information purposes only. We're not giving investment or transaction advice. All views expressed on this live stream are those of the participants, not of Euromoney. All comments are public and on the record, and all content is copyrighted Euromoney Institutional Investor 2020. For those that don't know me, I'm Victoria Ben. I'm Director of Middle East at Euromoney. Our live stream today is called Saudi Arabia, Stability and Support. I am honoured to be joined by His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Alkholifey, Governor of the Saudi Arabian Monetary Authority. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting me, Victoria.
Normally at this time of year, we would be gathered in Riyadh for our annual Saudi Arabia conference. I'm very sorry not to be with you and our partners there in Saudi. Perhaps before we can start, you can tell us how you are, how lockdown has been for you and the team at SAMA.
Well, it's a pity that we don't see you here in Riyadh at this stage in time. Well, in fact, the lockdown, as you know, the whole world was taken by surprise and was shocked by the strong measures taken by the health authorities. In February, things were normal and we were going to our offices normally and life was normal. But then things changed drastically in March with consequences including the social distancing, the lockdowns, and working from home. This new norm, of course, has its own impact on our life, but I think we have learned a lot from this unique crisis. Yet I think we are lucky we have advanced technology that enabled us to work from home and to remotely communicate smoothly as we are doing right now and do whatever we want. What we did in SAMA, in fact, what exactly the authorities told us to do was at the beginning close for business for a while and then reduce the number of workers reporting to office and of course while at the same time adapting ourselves to the new health measures. Now we have a good number of SAMA staff working from home. The business is running smoothly and we are thankful we did not face big difficulties during the crisis.
You're definitely in the office, I can see. So you're not working from home today?
No, I'm from office, of course.
I don't know if you recall, Governor, I was last in Riyadh in January at the G20 conference on local capital market development, and we did an interview then. Things seem to be on a good trajectory in the kingdom. Could you talk about the outlook for the Saudi economy before the pandemic hit?
Well, you know, the Saudi economy is a resource-based economy with a high degree of openness, imports and exports. The main exports, as you know, is the oil. Therefore, it will be definitely impacted by any global developments. We started the year 2020, just before the hit of the crisis, with an optimistic note. We were expecting a continuation of solid non-oil growth. We were about or more than 3.5%, and the overall growth of almost 2% for this year. Yet things have changed, as I described, drastically at the end of Q1. We ended the Q1 with a contraction of 1%. Things were very, swift in changes across the world and, of course, in Saudi Arabia. This has caused a high, uncertain environment. This has, of course, for us in our situation, the cut in oil production and the impact of the virus, they have impacted the growth projections as we have them right now, the IMF is projecting a contraction of the Saudi economy of more than 6%, and for the global economy about 5%, which again, we are impacted by the global economy, and we are impacted by the spread of the virus. The outlook for 2020 remains uncertain.
Could you talk to me a little bit about the actions which the central bank have taken to ensure systemic stability in the kingdom?
Well, you know, when we talk about systemic stability, we talk about financial stability, which is one of the broad strategic objectives of SAMA. And it is rooted in our work here, particularly after the global financial crisis of 2008, where almost all central banks around the world have adopted this, and they began to think more and more about the financial stability. For us, a number of factors we look at when we think about financial stability. One of the most important things that we look at is the exchange rate arrangement. That's the pegged exchange rate arrangement, which is, in my view, is one of the overriding anchors of stability of the financial sector. The other thing is the banking control law, which enshrines a number of macroprudential measures that we have been implementing since 1965. And we continue to do that. This is complemented, of course, with the strong enforcement coming from SAMA and strong supervision. So we think the banking control law is a catalyst for keeping the Saudi banking system relatively resilient. During the former crises and this crisis, of course, we have responded to these developments, I think appropriately, with the policy measures we have in hand, whether the macroprudential measures or the monetary policy tools.
So I think you get asked this every conference, Governor. So the dollar peg will stay.
Of course, we keep assuring this, and as today also I keep saying the same.
Yeah, of course. Could you please tell us what actions SAMA has taken to support the private sector and the people in the kingdom?
Well, as I told you, we're hit by surprise in the first quarter, but we think that we responded swiftly in the middle of March, where we started our policy reaction to the situation by injecting liquidity with a 0% interest rate, by lowering the policy rates, and by issuing a number of regulatory directives in order to help the business side and to help the banking system. In the middle of March, we announced a 50 billion Saudi riyal package. The aim was to help the small and medium enterprises to mitigate their cash flow fluctuations or stoppage in some of the activities, and also to support their working capital. That package, in fact, include the deferral of payments up to 6 months for the small and medium enterprises, the guaranteed facility, or the what we call funding for lending, where we give the SMEs loans for their business continuity, in addition to the loan guarantee to support banks and finance companies to relieve SMEs of financing costs. Then after the partial opening up of the business in June, SAMA announced another package of 50 billion Saudi riyal, but this time is a pure injection of liquidity. The aim was to provide the credit facilities to the private sector and to help banks restructure private sector loans, where we issued directives to urge banks to help those entities, particularly the big corporates. In addition to that, to help them to forego the fees for charging for e-banking services, which we early on asked them to forego these fees. One more important thing that we announced and also later on in June was the open market operations, which is the first time we started. The purpose of this, of course, is to help banks meet their short-dated liquidity needs, which is still running on a bi-weekly basis right now. With regard to the policy rate, we lowered the policy rates by 125 basis points for both repo and reverse repo. For the people, of course, we have done some postponements of the loans for some segments of the society, especially those who have been impacted by the crisis, like those under the SAND program, Saudis in the private sector who were furloughed from their jobs. We had to help them for up to 3 months of postponement of their installments, and we extended this later on. The last thing that we did also, which was the loan guarantee program for SMEs as well. This is in collaboration with the Kafala program, which is the guarantee program, where we and Kafala guarantee up to 95% of the loan.
And so you're confident that the financial sector is stable because of all these initiatives that you've put in place?
So far, yes, we are confident. But again, sometimes when you have the life support, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
One has to be careful when you unplug that life support, what would happen, particularly for the quality of assets, which we are doing stress test, of course. In fact, just yesterday we have seen it. So we feel comfortable, but again, we cannot really relax as long as we are in the midst of the crisis.
Yeah, we're in a global crisis, so who knows? Will the pandemic delay or disrupt SAMA's strategy as outlined under the FSDP of Vision 2030?
Well, under the Financial Sector Development Program, which we work along with the Ministry of Finance and Capital Market Authority, we have a number of initiatives, about 16 initiatives. We have completed 9 initiatives already before the COVID. And overall for the 16, we almost finished 90% of these. So we are almost completed when it comes to these initiatives. But the short answer, of course, no, it will not delay or disrupt because most of them have been completed. But it might require further review of some initiatives post-COVID, because we are expecting that a paradigm effect and business models changes. So one has to be, careful not to say that, well, we will implement the same initiatives. You never know what will happen. But the challenges remain there. Yet the ultimate strategic goal of the vision, which is economic diversification, and on us as a financial sector development program to reach some of the objectives, like for example, if I just give you 1 or 2 examples, for the fintech ecosystem, which we work on as SAMA, the digitized infrastructure, we pay attention to. In fact, we have achieved these objectives and we have exceeded the quantitative targets that have been put. The same thing for the number of fintech companies operating in Saudi Arabia, or the e-wallet companies, or the payment service companies. I think we have achieved our objectives.
I read a recent report, I think it must have been FinTech Saudi's annual report, that shows a growth from 20 to 60 operating fintech companies. So you're clearly, that perhaps the pandemic is in a way accelerating, how this sector develops, and the speed of its development.
I agree, Victoria. I mean, it is accelerating, and we have seen broader usage of the technology now.
Let me come on to my next question. What has SAMA learnt from this crisis, and how is it similar to others and how is it different? Obviously, we've talked about the global financial crisis, but what have been the lessons for SAMA to take forward?
You know, the COVID-19 crisis is a unique one, affecting the public health, causing social distancing and disrupting economic activities. As a policymaker, I think we should never relax or compromise on implementing our prudential measures. We do it, by the way, in normal times and in particular in such this time. When we talk about the prudential measures, either you are putting more strict rules or sometimes doing the opposite. We should, again, always we should stay alert as policy makers, because the fear is that if you are successful, this might take you to complacency, and that complacency might take you to more unintended consequences that you are trying to avoid. Therefore, we never relax. We are always alert as policymakers, even during good time. For this crisis, the challenge was how to strike a balance between saving lives and including the social distancing and keeping the economic activities intact. And that was a great challenge. That's why SAMA, when we intervened in March, we helped the SMEs in particular to postpone up to 6 months their payments in order to help them. We know that either stoppage or partial disruption to their business. When you ask about the similarities and differences, I think the similarities are a lot between this crisis and the other crisis, with the exception of one is the cause of this crisis, which is coming from the health, unlike other crises that we know in our life, at least. One of the differences probably between this crisis and the global financial crisis is this crisis has landed in a time of more geopolitical risks and retracted globalization. And one of the probably, I would say, differences is this crisis is impacting both demand and supply side. This crisis, unlike the other one, the banking sector is helping the economy, not the source of the crisis as happened in the global financial crisis. Of course, with the support of the public authorities, particularly the central banks.
Sadly, Governor, our time has come to an end on the Euromoney live stream, and we will now wrap this up. Your Excellency, thank you very much for joining us and for a fascinating discussion and insight into the SAMA's work during the pandemic. So thank you very much, Governor, and I very much look forward to seeing you in Riyadh, I hope very soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Victoria. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.